For plebs, by plebs, dropping the Bitcoin only signal. Pleb Underground. Welcome everyone to the Pleb Underground.
Pleb Underground, live on Spaces. It's about the bee, a hive with old faces. We start a little late, honey, but it's about the bread we're out. Don't like state money, but my girl's well fed now. For now, this ain't a rap. Just type this poetry. No need to be a sap. I'm right, this poetry. All the hopium addicts and simps on Twitter. We don't whore our audience, not pimps, can't fritter. Away your earnings or your life's ill hollow. I might spit rhymes, but my wife will swallow. Run a node like Raspi Blitz. Spend a little, she likes little glitz. Don't dance like Carlton, but stay at the Ritz. She keeps it tight, it always just fits. Can't rely on luck for scaling Bitcoin. Not in shape, fat fuck, you're ailing Bitcoin. You think you're helping, but you're failing Bitcoin. Plan B, voting act, sailing Bitcoin. Check my post, this ain't mailing Bitcoin. Cry harder bitches, wailing sailing Bitcoin. Check my post, this ain't mailing Bitcoin. Cry harder bitches, wailing Bitcoin. Sit around for riches, that's flailing Bitcoin. If you can't make a payment, you're not railing Bitcoin. Welcome. This is Pleb Underground, episode 68.
Very nice, Walton. Very nice. All right, so we've gathered a whole bunch of coiners together to talk about. That's right, the title says it, scaling Bitcoin. So Walton, I don't know if you had an agenda and you wanted to kick it off with that.
I mean, I have an agenda, but not like a spook, right? Hi Jane. No, oh, she right. Hi Jane. No, oh, she left. Good. Fucking spooks everywhere. Anyway, hello to everyone. Yeah, so scaling Bitcoin. There's lots of the mempool's really clogged, right? So to me, this shows that we have an issue right now, and we need some scaling solutions, right? We need better ways for transactions to be batched such that people can make the transfers, make the payments that they need to make. My understanding is that things like CTV could help, and unfortunately, CTV could help, and unfortunately, Mr. Rubin couldn't attend tonight. But I know Shinobi is quite a fan of CTV. Shinobi, maybe you could tell us a little bit about CTV, and is this a solution that can fix everything for us?
Well, I wouldn't call any proposed scaling technique a solution in the sense of this fixes everything. It's a matter of how much more scalability do you get when looking at an individual solution. The reason I like CTV is because it's just the simplest, least complex thing that we have fully fleshed out and designed that could give us another order of magnitude scalability. Like one of the big problems that you're seeing right now with all the high fees and shenanigans on is Lightning, the most built out and mature scaling solution, is having massive problems because it's becoming prohibitively expensive, or just, if you don't want to pay a quick confirmation fee, taking a lot of time. So just expensive in another way to even open confirmation fee, taking a lot of time. So just expensive in another way to even open a Lightning channel. Something like CTV would help alleviate that. Like, the part of what CTV does is pretty much just you load a coin into a script locked to a CTV template, and then once that output is confirmed, it's impossible to spend those coins in any other way except the exact transaction that template defines. And you can chain a lot of them together. So simply by confirming a single output on chain, you can 100% guarantee there's no other way that coin can be spent except to fan out into multiple transactions and eventually create hundreds or thousands of other outputs that haven't actually been created yet. That's a technique you could use to open massive amounts of Lightning channels all at once. And once that first transaction confirms on chain, you could have thousands of transactions that descend from that, and you can effectively treat them as if they are already confirmed in the blockchain, because they 100% will be. It's just a matter of when at that point. And it's just a very simple thing. Like it doesn't open up a whole door of massive complex functionality with a million different things that it could do that we have to sit and think about. Do any of these things cause negative consequences? Are they going to interact badly with other things? It's just dead. So are they going to interact badly with other things? It's just dead simple. It guarantees that what you want to confirm in the future is the only thing that can confirm in the future, descending from that initial output. And so, you know, I'm a very conservative person when it comes to how much functionality we should add to Bitcoin. To me, it's a no-brainer. Like, it doesn't solve the issue. It's not like, yay, Bitcoin scales now and we have nothing else to figure out. Scales now and we have nothing else to figure out or solve for. But it gives us a hell of a lot more headroom than we have now. It's ready. It's fully fleshed out. It's very well understood. It's just the next logical step in my mind.
And here is where I can throw a wrench in all of that. You ready?
No.
Yes. I think it's much simpler to look at all of this like as exploitation of witness discount. And nature is healing. I've just looked at where we're at. We're at 80 sats per V-byte right now. So we're back into the territory. But I expect, yeah, with ordinals, as long as you can embed this massive amounts of data in the blockchain, really, this was completely unintended, but as long as you can do it, like, there will be a problem. And to me, it seems that discussion should go in the direction of, you know, seeing what we can do to fix that problem. So that's just me. And sorry, yeah, Shinobi, take over. Seeing what we can do to fix that problem. So that's just me. And sorry, yeah, Shinobi, take over. That I throw a wrench in your CTV discussion.
I mean, we can't. Like, you literally cannot stop people from putting arbitrary data on the blockchain. It's not possible. All you can do is play and tweak with a little knob that changes how expensive it is. And all you can really do is twist that to the point where it's equally as expensive as other stuff. But that has massive negative consequences for people just using Bitcoin as money. Like, the reason the witness discount was created was because it was more expensive to take a bunch of small UTXOs and condense them and spend them to make a payment versus just peeling a little bit off of a single UTXO and making more of them. And that has massive negative externalities for every single person out there running a full node that has to validate the blockchain, because you can't validate a block without the entire UTXO set. And so that effectively is to validate the blockchain, because you can't validate a block without the entire UTXO set. And so that effectively created a completely screwed incentive situation where the people spending are incentivized to just keep making that UTXO set bigger and bigger and bigger. And people running validating nodes just have to eat shit and bear that cost. The witness discount was created to square that circle, to make it so that it was not so much more expensive to spend multiple small UTXOs versus one big one, that hopefully that incentive does not just exacerbate the validation cost of the network. And to go back and start playing with that again is just going to be an endless game of, I twist the knob, they do this instead. You twist the knob again, they're just going to go do this. It is a futile waste of time, development effort, and just attention.
Damn, I now wish I don't need to jump off, but you and I will continue this discussion at Chicago BitDevs. I really believe that as a developer, when I look at what's intended with witness discount, it's what you're saying, but the way it's used, yeah, completely different. Super testnet.
Yeah, we've got some time to waste. Let's do some knob twisting. I'd like to give it a few turns and see if we can come up with something better. The good old days were back when everyone was. Yeah, we've got some time to waste. Let's do some knob twisting. I'd like to give it a few turns and see if we can come up with something better. The good old days were back when everyone was worried the UTXO set's going to get so massive, and we have to do something about it. Well, now the UTXO set's really massive, and it's because some screwed up incentives arose from the ordinals movement. So let's twist that knob and see if we can get something better out of it than the value we originally.
This episode of Pleb Underground is brought to you by BTC Pins. Check them out at btcpins.com. Use the code Pleb Underground for 5% off. Awesome pins. Here is my awesome pin collection. That's right. There's also a Pleb Underground pin. Ask for it when you place your order. And again, use the code Pleb Underground for 5% off at btcpins.com.
Said it to.
Dude, it's like this is the whole problem. Is now we're what and who is just going to start centrally planning and adjusting all these variables, not to just create a abstract alignment, but based on specific behavior. I don't like this use, twist. I don't like that use, twist. Like this to me is just a road towards a bureaucratic, like this to me is just a road towards a bureaucratic political process in charge of what changes happen to Bitcoin. And rather than actually focus on scaling, on actually making transactional use of Bitcoin more efficient on the blockchain, it's just a never-ending game of whack-a-mole for people to try and stop uses of the blockchain that they don't like. And that inevitably gets bureaucratic, it inevitably gets subjective and political. And that's just a poisonous direction to go in my opinion.
What's wrong with whack-a-mole? You act like it's this terrible thing, but I think it's what's wrong with whack-a-mole? You act like it's this terrible thing, but I think it's what, at least in some respect, it's what I'm here to do. I'm here to build the best money in the world, and if I have to whack some moles along the way, I'm happy to do it.
We're going to go to Yuri in a moment. But I know that Super Testnet is a fan of drive chains. And I know that Shinobi is not. Why is drive chain?
I think he's coming around.
Okay, well, why? Or maybe the drive chain isn't the problem, but what is it? Minor escrow is the problem. But why do you think Super Testnet that something like a drive chain could be a scaling solution? If that is the case, and then maybe we can hear from Shinobi as to why that's not. And then maybe we can hear from Shinobi as to why that's not.
Well, I don't know if it's a scaling solution. It's more like a stop using Bitcoin solution. Bitcoin's blockchain gets too clogged up with expensive, and it gets too expensive to use. I'm going to go use a drive chain instead. But the advantage of a drive chain is that I think it's a bit better than current alternatives like Liquid and Rootstock, where you have to trust a small group of people with your money. At least with a drive chain, you'd be trusting your money. At least with a drive chain, you'd be trusting a larger set of people. You'd be trusting the 51% of miners, and I think that's an improvement. So that's why I want drive chains, but I don't think it exactly scales Bitcoin. It's more like Bitcoin doesn't have to be used for everything. You can use a drive chain instead for a lot of things.
But like, I disagree fundamentally that miners are magically more decentralized or trustworthy or anything as a custodian. I mean, if you look at Frost and Schnorr signatures, and like Blockstream has already rolled out their DynaFed system where a federation can dynamically change membership. Like you can already do an incredibly large dynamic federation group without drive chains or miners. And yeah, I just categorically reject the assertion that miners are somehow a more honest or qualified or competent custodian. Like that argument just makes no sense to me.
Well, I'm not asking you to personally use drive chains, my friend. I'm just asking you to twist a little knob. I'll let other people do the drive chain stuff. Well, I'm not asking you to personally use drive chains, my friend. I'm just asking you to twist a little knob. I'll let other people do the drive chain stuff.
But that assumes that drive chains existing create no negative externalities for anyone else. And that's, again, something I categorically reject. Like the minute you start introducing new variables into mining incentives, you are inherently creating effects for other people, regardless of whether they use that or not.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the new incentives Drive Chain creates. I think they're good incentives. You think they're bad incentives, and I think that's where our disagreement lies.
Yeah,
and that's great. We're still friends.
But we're probably gonna get into a fight one of these days, though. But that's okay. Friends fight sometimes.
Friendly fire.
Yeah, I guess Yuri, though, you've had your hand up for a while.
Hello, everyone. So I more or less adjacent to this topic. I have just made a proposition in Bitcoin Dev mailing list on how to utilize Lamport scheme. Doesn't mistake with Lamport signature. Lamport scheme to more easily convey transactions in Bitcoin layer 1, right? So with a smaller on-chain footprint. So is there somebody, sorry, let me lower my hand, okay. So is there someone there too in the Bitcoin Dev mailing list? Have you noticed my thread? Lower my hand, okay. So is there someone there too in the Bitcoin Dev mailing list? Have you noticed my thread there about Lamport scheme? Do you have any thoughts?
I have not, but I am clicking around to look for it right now.
For those of us that are slightly less technical, maybe you could give us a little bit of background as to Lamport signatures are about, and how your proposal can improve things, and how your proposal can improve things.
Thank you, Walton. And yeah, sure, absolutely. So a Lamport scheme is just a chain of hashes. So you take a certain binary blob, hash it. Take this digest, meaning the hash of it, hash it, and then you iterate on that n times, like the hash of the hash of the hash n times. You have the original blob as a private key, and then the latest one as your public one, yes. And then you authenticate yourself irretrievably by revealing the next unrevealed pre-image, right? The next, the previous actually, right? The previous in the sequence, the previous unrevealed in the sequence. Now, my point is this: you combine. Of course, you can. It's reputable, right? Because by definition, if you reveal your private information, supposedly somebody else can use it to sign something else. So I made a combination of that with conventional Bitcoin keys, so that you use the conventional keys to open a window of time in which you can use the Lamport in the sequence. So you wait a few blocks to use the conventional keys to open a window of time in which you can use the Lamport in the sequence. So you wait a few blocks to then reveal and submit the previous iteration, because then an attacker cannot go back in time, right, and bury a transaction before you, right, because your transaction is already a few blocks deep in the blockchain, so cannot be changed, right? It will be forever the first one for that key you just revealed and bury it there. And since all it takes is 100 and something bits, not even bytes, bits, right? You therefore reduce your footprint. The conventional signature you issued doesn't need to go to the blockchain. It's you only used it to give the miner chain. It's you only used it to give the miner a guarantee. So if you default, if you fail to bury the pre-image in I don't know 2 days time, right, to protect you from internet outage. Then the conventional commitment, you sign it with the conventional key, backs up the miner against you just disappearing or just bearing a bogus transaction in the blockchain. So it then, after you finally bury the blockchain, the conventional signed commitment is discarded. Right. I explained
Yuri,
that.
This may be a stupid question.
Yes.
Stupid question, but can we compare this to Lightning? Because my understanding is with Lightning, you essentially, you set up a multi-sig, right? And then you can make you set up a multi-sig, right? And then you can make a bunch of transactions that are essentially within a single footprint on the blockchain. How is this different?
Good question. Thank you, Walton. Well, my solution is still on chain, right? It's compatible to Lightning insofar as you have a commitment that is, on the typical case, not buried in the blockchain. It's only buried in case some of the parts default, right? Doesn't go along what they promised. So then the miner, in this case, the miner buries the transaction that the user issued as a guarantee, So, but it's in fact on chain, layer 1, right? Whereas Lightning is by definition layer 2. Now, of course, one thing can be built on top of the other. You could theoretically use that as a layer 1 over which you build your Lightning scheme. So, yes.
And how does this help with scaling?
Good question. Again, it's an alternative for layer 1, which is cheaper, right? It has a lesser, a lower footprint. Eventually,
it has a smaller number of virtual bytes for the transaction. Is that a way of looking at it?
Yes.
Hold on, really.
Sorry, guys, just a brief note. Virtual bytes for the transaction. Is that a way of looking at it?
Yes.
Hold on, really.
Sorry, guys, just a brief note. Can we try and switch our mutes on, because we're getting a bunch of interference when we all leave our microphones on.
Really quick, Walton, if I could ask you a question though. I'm not familiar with the concept of a Lamport chain before this, but am I right in reading this that it's effectively a scheme that commits to a transaction ahead of time before actually revealing it, and there's some kind of branching conditional that's possible there?
Not exactly, because here's the thing.
Not exactly, son.
Oh, hush that.
Let me try here. I suspect a meme went on, but I didn't get the reference anyway. So consider you have this sequence of hashes, right? You have a certain blob, and then the hash of it, and then the hash of it, and then etc. 3 times, 4 times, anyway. So you take the last one, right? You call it your public key. Now, you take the hash of this public key together with your plain transaction, and then you publish it, right? Together with your plain transaction, right? Meaning plain transaction plus the hash of your public key, meaning a Lamport public key with this transaction, okay? Now, how can you convince a miner to add it, right? For instance, in its mined Coinbase, right? How could you convince them to do that for free for you? You conventionally sign a commitment saying, look, if in the space of 48 hours, I don't show up a pre-image whose hash coincides with this that you're, airing now, I pay you a fine. I don't show up a pre-image whose hash coincides with this that you're, airing now, I pay you a fine. Okay, I pay you a fine for that. Okay, so then the miner accepts that, does not mine the commitment, okay, because it's still not necessary, and he will bury this transaction. Now, why is it so? Because you cannot just reveal your private key, because of course if you do that, anybody else just reveal your private key, because of course if you do that, anybody else can use it, sign something else. So the signature doesn't make sense. It only makes sense because, again, the property of blockchain that prevents you from undoing the past, right? So if when this commitment, sorry, not commitment, this first blob, right, the transaction together with the hash of it with our public key, when that is a few blocks deep, you can assure, right, you can take for granted that it will never change. So then and only then you reveal your private, that it will never change. So then and only then you reveal your private key, and then everybody can check that the hash of this private key will be a so-called public key that, if concatenated with the transaction and hashed, will in fact result in the hash that was mined, and therefore it's valid. So it means that you, the owner of the private key, was in fact the same person who issued that transaction, and therefore the transaction is valid, it's authenticated. So, but then anyways, all this back and forth, because you cannot just publish the entire thing. So you have to first publish for free the block, and then only a few blocks later you reveal your key. But since this key is much smaller, that compensates, because it's really a few bytes long, much less than even a Schnorr signature. You see, so it really does make sense. You really have a diminishment, reducement of footprint.
Okay, I'm still not following the mechanics here, but at least the purpose of this, or like what this is trying to accomplish, is the idea that you effectively try to get miners to include your transactions in their Coinbase, or at least the output of your transaction you want created, with a conditional script, so that you can effectively try to use the Coinbase transaction as a way to like cut through transactions, like effectively just move the actual script so that you can effectively try to use the Coinbase transaction as a way to like cut through transactions, like effectively just move the actual payment activity into the Coinbase and just make sure that that's sound incentive-wise to do without miners being able to rip you off.
With a commitment to pay the fee to the miner later, it sounds like.
So sounds like what? No, look, the Coinbase is just a way to, to accommodate, the need for the transaction, to accommodate, the need for the transaction to be temporarily mined for free, so to say, right? It's not for free, because again, eventually you pay. Okay, the point is, you sign a promise that eventually, that you're going to pay later, right? And you sign that conventionally, right? With the other component of the key. You have a conventional key together with the Lamport key. Use the conventional key to say, look, the pre-image that I'm promising will in fact arrive within a few blocks time, and if it doesn't, I pay a fine, and it's conventionally signed, period. So, and then the miner takes that, accepts that, right? Because he has this warranty. If in the agreed time, the pre-image doesn't show up, then he publishes and executes the fine, right? So nobody is scammed, right? Nobody is harmed, economically injured. Nobody takes a free ride in the blockchain. So harmed, economically injured. Nobody takes a free ride in the blockchain. So again, but everything being done as expected, then again, all in all, less bytes end up in the blockchain, and the same transaction was still signed. right? So mission accomplished.
Yuri, can we get us some summary here, just briefly on the kind of numbers that we're talking about? Like, is this the transactions that you put? Do they end up being like half the number of do they end up being like half the number of virtual bytes? Like, is this what are the kind of orders of magnitude here that we're talking about in terms of the potential space saving? And is this something that is feasible even in high fee environments, say maybe we have now?
I don't know if you guys can hear Yuri, but I can't hear
I can't
Yuri.
hear him, no.
Hello. Okay.
There you are. There you are.
Okay. So thank you, Walton. Again, preliminary calculations pointed out 12 bytes for this Lamport pre-image, and then all in all, everything compared up to 26% less compared to Schnorr, which is already very lower than ECC, correct? So I call it a win, yes. And also, can that be implemented? Yes, it's just a matter of, it doesn't have to do with how high the fees are. Only, of course, it has to be implemented. Yes, it's just a matter of, it doesn't have to do with how high the fees are. Only, of course, it has to be observed that it will take a little longer. Eventually, by definition, by design, you have to wait a few blocks to do the full cycle, right? You send the first block now, T0. You have to wait a few blocks to make sure that the probability of that first block be unburied is very low, is negligible, and then only then you publish your pre-key. So, it's the price you pay to reduce your footprint. But yes, other than that, it's 26% less than even Schnorr. Yeah. Than even Schnorr. Yeah.
Is it possible for you to share a tweet into the nest, like share it into this space, so that people can read more, and we'll include it in the show notes when we publish this episode?
Thank you, Walton. Yes. Look, the only place where I wrote anything about it is in the Bitcoin dev list, but I will make sure to. I will comment here in the space, and then copy and paste, and of course do some editing in the text I have been submitting there. So yeah, thank you. By the way, yes.
Thank you. I think let's move on from.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. By the way, yes.
Thank you. I think let's move on from this heavily technical discussion, and talk a little bit about the current solutions. There's been increased talk of liquid over the past few weeks. I don't know how much Blockstream are paying BTC Sessions, or if they are, but certainly BTC Sessions has been one of the promoters of it. In part because people are wanting to spend Bitcoin in small amounts. They may have a Lightning node, but not necessarily have the liquidity on their Lightning node, and so people have started doing swaps, right? I don't know if any of our speakers could talk a little bit about the current use of liquid, and is it something that helps? I know Ben the Carman who's not here tonight, unfortunately, does not see it as a scaling solution. Gentlemen, your comments on liquid.
Well, it is limited, and anytime you swap in and out of anything, you're playing with shit.
I mean, he's not wrong in that blockchains don't scale, but it is extra block space that doesn't affect the main chain. It can be scaled differently and kept cheaper. At a minimum, it offers potentially like a 4x increase effectively of block space if you're willing to trust the federation. But I mean, I, I don't see that as a, long-term solution. I see that as something that might help with like channel liquidity management on Lightning for a while as a stopgap. But long term, I don't see that as a solution. I see that as something that might help with like channel liquidity management on Lightning for a while as a stopgap, but long term, I don't see that as a solution to that.
And if you can't,
I mean, Testnet, you got any input on that?
Yeah, I did. I heard a gentleman start to talk, and then I wanted to pause to wait for him to finish, but he stopped talking. So, yeah, I was going to say that, Carmen's point that blockchains don't scale is correct if you only have one of them. But if you have like thousands of blockchains, that scales. Then it works because each one of them has like 5 people on it, and then you're good because you got
That sounds
no
like some
problems. You only have
shitcoiner
5 people.
talk, Super Testnet. That sounds like some serious shitcoiner talk.
Well, it would be if they all had different monies on them. But the nice thing about Liquid is that its currency doesn't compete with Bitcoin because you have to deposit Bitcoins with the multisig in order to use it. So there's a peg there, which I appreciate. Deposit Bitcoins with the multisig in order to use it. So there's a peg there, which I appreciate.
Is this a roundabout way of saying that you're a supporter of things like Fedimints, which I understand are kind of private liquids?
No, but I will endorse that. I am also a fan of private groups that do that stuff, and I think Ben is too. I think he was like, instead of using Liquid, use a Fedimint, because you get the benefits of having a federation without the drawbacks of having a blockchain, which I totally agree with. That is, that's really good too.
at least it's still.
We can't hear you, Dad.
Oh, yeah,
Your
Hodl,
signal
man.
sucks.
If you don't know Tarantula is the only guest of Pleb Underground that joined us live from a liquor store 45 minutes late into the show. As quite often he's driving, and so his signal is cut. And whilst he is 5 minutes late into the show, as quite often he's driving, and so his signal is cut. And whilst he is a very funny man, we're not hearing the jokes. So.
One of the downsides of both Liquid and federations is that they're forms of credit. Like if you deposit your Bitcoins with Fedi or with Liquid, they give you a credit for whatever amount of Bitcoin you gave. And then when you get your Bitcoins back later, you're just hoping that they fulfill their obligation, their credit, their debt obligation to you. And at least me, I think that is a massive, massive drawback of both. And I try to find solutions that have less of that. Those are my preferred solutions. Have none of that, but I don't know about. It's really hard to make it so there's none of that at all.
Well, I mean, to just get a little abstract for a minute, I think the big focal point of scalability is that blockchains just do not scale enough for everybody to have their own individual UTXOs. Is that blockchains just do not scale enough for everybody to have their own individual UTXOs. Like that is just never going to work in terms of ownership, in terms of the ability of transferring that. It's not happening. So the question becomes, how do people share a UTXO? And how do you scale the interactivity required for people to share a UTXO? To have some mechanism to enforce like their ownership of their little sliver of it in a way that's actually safe, that somebody can't just come out from under you and snatch it away and nothing you can do about it. And that's, as I've always thought about it, kind of the crux of the matter. Like, how do we do that? How do we do that safely? How do we do that cost effectively? And how do we do that in a way where the interactivity between everybody sharing that UTXO is a reasonable amount of interaction to ask of a user in order to use their money?
One of the reasons why I think things like Liquid are more popular than Fedimints, although maybe that's changing. They have been classically. And I think it's partly because they have global state. There are certain types of contracts, like they have been classically. And I think it's partly because they have global state. There are certain types of contracts, like financial pooling, where it's useful to have a single address that holds a bunch of money and everyone can like see how much it has and make contracts that interact with it. And Liquid has that. Like it has blockchains global state user that can see and interact with. Whereas with something like Fedi, you don't. These current models don't have global state, and if one user can't see what another user's balance is, and they can't like send money to an address that is controlled by a smart contract, and they can't like send money to an address that is controlled by a smart contract or something. Everything's just controlled by whoever's running the federation. So that kind of makes them less attractive for certain for like DeFi type stuff than something like Liquid is. And I think that might be part of why, or it might be changing, because I think recently the model of eCash has become more popular. But for a while, it has been true that Liquid was even Liquid with its nearly zero users was still more popular than eCash for a long time.
Two things. One, I'm pleased to hear that the super testnet family sounds like it's scaling, and secondly, family sounds like it's scaling, and secondly, I think Bitcoin seems to solve the problem of central banking, right? Or removes the need for central banking. But I think many people in the Bitcoin space, and this is probably a controversial opinion, don't recognize that maybe banking, commercial banking, will still and may still need to exist in the future. And some of these higher level technologies, such as Liquid or these eCash mints and things, like are essentially banking type solutions on top of Bitcoin. Would you guys agree on this?
Sort of.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, you go ahead for super.
Banks are something that I try to eliminate the need for, because they represent a form of trusted third party. And to the extent that you say, perhaps, do I agree that they will be necessary in the future? No, I don't think they're necessary now, and I don't think if they start becoming necessary in the future, then I think they've done something wrong. But I do think they are helpful right now. Many people, including me, have a bank account, and becoming necessary in the future, then I think they've done something wrong. But I do think they are helpful right now. Many people, including me, have a bank account, and my hope is that I can make them less and less useful to people as
maybe
Bitcoin
I didn't kind of
fills
express
those
this
use
quite
cases.
right. What I mean more is like, if let's say you run, I don't know, you run an eCash mint for your extended family or for your local community or something like this, rather than it being like a traditional bank. Like, if it's not possible for everyone in the world to own their own UTXOs, whether that's true or not, but if that is the case, then how can we scale Bitcoin to everyone without having localized banks in the form of things like eCash mints?
Well, I don't think that they stay local for very long. This is one of the things that I find. I like the Uncle Jim model of where you try to run a custodial service for your family and friends. But the problem with the Uncle Jim model that I don't know how to solve yet is that if Uncle Jim provides a reliable and useful service for his friends and family, other people who aren't his friends and family, that I don't know how to solve yet, is that if Uncle Jim provides a reliable and useful service for his friends and family, other people who aren't his friends and family are going to want to use it too. Like, Uncle Jim doesn't stay Uncle Jim; he becomes a company through quite a natural process of people saying, "Oh, this works. This is reliable. I'm going to use it too," and he grows, and he has an incentive to do that because it inherently brings him in a source of income, and it's reliable, and it's great. Like, everyone wants that to happen, except that it introduces trusted third parties. The bigger he becomes, the easier it is for him to rug a lot of people, or for him to pass on the company, or a lot of people, or for him to pass on the company or bring in help to help him do it, and then those people's incentives aren't aligned, and pretty soon everyone's money's gone. So the Uncle Jim model, I don't know how to solve it yet, results in just banks, like big ones. They don't stay small; they become big.
I would push back a little bit on that. I mean, I definitely understand the worry, and I'm not going to argue that the dynamic is dead on as you describe it. But I I would think that as long as there is not a very asymmetric leading edge where a very small amount of people are the only ones doing that, where a very small amount of people are the only ones doing that or offering those types of services, that just sheer market competition would kind of simultaneously like shoehorn the, or not shoehorn, like smother the growth of any individual Uncle Jim setup, but also that competitiveness would bring down the fees and revenues. And as they have to compete with each other, it would kind of also smother the incentive for them to try to grow much past whatever point that they make. But like overall, Walton, I mean, if that's the situation we wind up in, that's the situation we wind up in, I would consider that a failure. I mean, like Bitcoin might still survive, it might still exist and be valuable and be something everybody uses in their daily lives. But I would personally consider that scenario a failure. Like we failed, we did not make this into everything it had the potential to be. And I would think that fucking sucks.
So what's the solution then? I kind of agree, but I right now I haven't heard of a better solution, and I think that sucks. Like there was what is it, like middle of the year, like ARC was. Right now I haven't heard of a better solution, and I think that sucks. Like there was what is it, like middle of the year, like ARC was announced, and it sounded like oh, this could be some amazing solution, like some kind of giant lightning channel for everyone to use. I didn't quite understand it, but there hasn't. It was just a paper, right? There wasn't actually code written. Yeah, what's ARC all about? Can it do anything? Is it going to get built?
Well, Super, I think you should probably take this one. Well, Super, I think you should probably take this one.
I haven't been involved in the art community for quite a while, but I have a pretty recent memory of Barack saying that they're nearly ready with their demo. I think they're gonna do it on Liquid first, and I think they want some sort of covenant to be activated on Bitcoin, and it's one that Liquid has. So I think they're building it on Liquid first, and then they're going to use that as like a push to activate that form of covenant software on Bitcoin, so you can do the same thing there. So if any of that is accurate, and I assume some of it's not accurate, but if any of that is accurate, and I assume some of it's not accurate, but if any of it's accurate, I look forward to seeing it soon, because I would like to see the working a working version of ARC. Personally, I also think I know how to build ARC, so one of these days that's going to be a priority for me. If they don't get theirs out soon, I'm just going to make it myself.
I thought you've been busy like trying to build like computer games on Bitcoin for some reason. Like, what's that about?
Oh, that was a month ago. That was when I was all big on BitVM. Every month I changed to a new thing. So yeah, I have been trying. I did try to build video games. I got closer, but it's not powerful enough to run video games. But yeah.
But why do we need this? Like, I thought, like, wasn't Ethereum, the mother of all shitcoins, meant to be this, like, oh, we can put like a computer and everything and all the software on a blockchain? Like, why?
Like,
because you can.
I'm not an Ethereum person, so I'm a bad person to ask why put everything on the blockchain.
I mean, me neither. I've literally never bought a shit. And if you go to fuckshitcoins.com, you can like and subscribe to Pleb Underground. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, it's just like Walton. Like
you can like and subscribe to Pleb Underground. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, it's just like Walton. Like we need some kind of covenant. We need something. And even if ARC itself is not the thing that works or that scales, like just ARC existing is a design that people can change. They can do in different ways. They can make different trade-offs. But like ultimately, like that's the direction we need to go in. We need to find ways where more and more people can share. We need to find ways where more and more people can share control of a single UTXO on chain in a way where all of them do not have to be online at the same time when one person wants to do something with their money. where they don't have to be online 24/7 all day to make sure that somebody didn't do something fraudulent or pull some trick and sweep their money out from under them when they weren't online. And like, that's the direction we have to go in. And it's not something that's going to get solved overnight. I mean, like, Lightning has been live since 2018, like 5 years. And it's been 5 years since Lightning went live before something like Arc came along with an actual concrete design, like to go, here's a new way we can do this type of off-chain stuff, like down to the specific tail. And you know what? It might be another 5 years before the next improvement on that happens, but we tail. And you know what? It might be another 5 years before the next improvement on that happens, but we need to keep trying. Like, it's ridiculously silly just because this stuff takes a long time or requires a lot of effort to just say fuck it and throw our hands up like we'll just use banks now. Like, it's silly. Like, let's do what we have to do in the moment to be able to use our Bitcoin now, but that doesn't mean we should stop trying to find better, more scalable, more secure ways to use it.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're definitely just, for now, we're going to find out the ideas that don't work. You know, like, we, to your point, you know, be like, we don't have a choice but to persist in you. So for now, we're going to.
Pleb Underground is brought to you by CypherSafe. Check them out at cyphersafe.io. Self-sovereignty is more important than ever with Bitcoin, and you need to make sure that your seed is secure. Use the Cypher Grid. It comes with this awesome little punch tool. It's virtually indestructible. Check it out at cyphersafe.io.
Going to find out the ideas that don't work, and you don't have a choice but to persist in you. So for now, we're going to find out the ideas that don't work and, you know, continue to have these conversations.
Yep.
Can ARC be implemented with what we currently have now, or do we need things like covenants?
I think Super would be better to take that one.
There's a version of ARC that I like to call Clark, because it's covenantless ARC, and it also reminds me of Superman, that you can build today without needing any covenants. And it's got some limitations. The biggest one is that it seems to me that you can't have very many people in it. So an ARC, as its name implies, is supposed to have, well, I guess the ARC, I was about to say an ARC is supposed to have a lot of people in it. Of course, the actual ARC in the Bible did not have very many people on it. But it had lots of animals, right? And it's supposed to be able to hold all of our UTXOs. But
we are a bunch of animals.
But it had lots of animals, right? And it's supposed to be able to hold all of our UTXOs. But
we are a bunch of animals.
Huh? Well, yeah, that's true.
We are a bunch of animals.
No one better knows that than Mr. Tarantula himself. You can build it without covenants, but at least the version I know how to do would only be able to have like probably about 100 people. I think you could maybe get away with inside the ARC, and I think Barak's vision is to have like tens of thousands of people in an ARC. So but it gets really difficult because the thing that the issue with it is that when you're making ARC without covenants, every member of the ARC has to like sign some transactions in order to make it in order to make sure that they can get their money out. And if any one of them refuses to, you have to like redo the whole process. So if you try to have 10,000 people in one, and one of them decides not to co-sign whatever he's supposed to, you have to like kick him out, but with the remaining 99,000 people. So I think that you could probably have like video game servers do this, where they will break up a large group of people into smaller sets, and then the servers that you could probably have like video game servers do this, where they will break up a large group of people into smaller sets, and then the servers themselves do some of the coordination. Each server only has to deal with a couple hundred people, and that seems to work for them, where they can get people to like run the same software and produce the same results reliably. So maybe we could do a model like that with a covenantless ARC, where everyone hooks up to a server, in groups of 100, they hook up to a server, they co-sign some stuff for their part of the ARC, and I don't know. But the limitation I see for doing a covenantless version is that it's really hard to get massive amounts of people to coordinate, and so you have to make it smaller, and a smaller ARC is not as fun. But I think you can do it, and I want to see that happen. but we'll see. Maybe we'll get governance before I get around to having that as my next project.
Super. Will you get on my arc, sir, and arc with me?
Anytime. I'll be on your arc.
Sir, and arc with me.
Anytime. I'll be on your arc. You just say where and when.
This is funny because I have a joke, an ongoing joke with my buddy Ant, who's down in the audience. If you don't know Ant, you should check out timechainstats.com. But me and Ant have an ongoing joke that every single Twitter Spaces turns into a shoot your shot space. So Tarantula, can you wait until a little bit later so you start hitting on our guests, because we are trying to have a serious conversation here mostly.
I love Super. He's my homie.
Dad, come on. You're in public, Dad.
I'll behave.
Yeah, as far as like scaling solutions go, though, I think a really underappreciated tool in that vein is state chains. If nobody's ever heard of those before, Mercury Wallet.
I just saw a
company.
presentation from Tom, who's their CTO in London a few weeks ago. Sounds like very exciting. My takeaway from that was that it's a bit like open dimes, but virtual open dimes. But I'm sure you can explain it a bit better.
No, I mean, that's the best simple way to do it. It works pretty much kind of just like a Lightning channel. You have a multi-sig address on chain, somebody loads coins into, and a pre-signed transaction that the current owner has that they can use to submit to the blockchain if they ever need to unilaterally take control of their funds. But the idea is, instead of that multi-sig just being two people's keys, it's actually a single key that you use a multi-party computational protocol for two people to generate half of the key each without any one of them ever having the whole key. And there are similar like MPC protocols that you can use for both of those people to collaborate and produce a signature together with both of those key halves. It's kind of the same way that Schnorr multisig works. But the real neat part is that one of those key halves can be held by a service provider. And what they can do when you want to give your state chain or state coin to somebody else, the same way that Schnorr multisig works. But the real neat part is that one of those key halves can be held by a service provider. And what they can do when you want to give your state chain or state coin to somebody else is that you get the person you want to send it to together, and the three of you go through a protocol where for that exact same key, the service provider and the new person you want to send it to generate two totally new and different shares that add up to the same key. And then the service provider delete their half for the old pair. And in that whole process, the new person signs a new transaction that's set up with time locks so that they can now submit theirs to the blockchain before the old person does. And as long as that service provider deletes that share, like there's no way for the old owner to ever take it back. Like it's literally impossible for the old owner and that provider to sign for that key again.
So how much scaling can happen for Bitcoin without being on layer one or any other layer, right? If this kind of stuff happens off chain, like is this a significant way that we can scale Bitcoin, or will it only ever stay local?
Well, right now there's kind of a big limitation because you have to have like a decrementing time lock, where like the original owner of that state chain has a super long time lock before they can use that transaction to claim their coins. And when they transfer it, the person who they transfer it to has a slightly shorter time lock. And then the person they transfer it to has a slightly shorter time lock. And so eventually it gets to a point where the time lock can't get any shorter and you have to claim that on chain. Now, if we had L2, which everybody wants for Lightning, you could use that same mechanism to have an unlimited number of transfers of a state chain, so that instead of using the decrementing time lock, it's just the newest version of the transaction can always override any old ones. And so if we had that, you could transfer a state chain an infinite number of times off chain. But until we have that, it's kind of limited into how many times you can pass it around.
So it's better with covenants, as with most things.
Yep.
So I think it's interesting that you bring up.
Activate
Oh, go
covenants.
ahead, Super.
I was going to bring up something less interesting, which is that all of the solutions we've talked about are multi-sigs. Like Liquid's a multi-sig, this is a multi-sig, Lightning's a multi-sig. Everything we propose for scaling Bitcoin ends up being a multi-sig. But you can continue with your more interesting observation.
No, I don't know that it was more interesting than that, but yeah, it's. I thought it was interesting that you brought up L2 because I feel like there's not much talk about that. I saw a presentation at the MIT Bitcoin Expo in 2019 from Tajay Drija, I believe, on L2, and obviously
ends up being a multi-sig. But you can continue with your more interesting observation.
No, I don't know that it was more interesting than that, but yeah, it's. I thought it was interesting that you brought up L2 because I feel like there's not much talk about that. I saw a presentation at the MIT Bitcoin Expo in 2019 from Tajay Drija, I believe, on L2, and obviously, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand shit back then, and I still don't really understand that much more today. But still, my point is that we don't really hear, or at least I don't really hear too much talk about it, and I don't really understand. Is it like a parallel technology to Lightning, or is it something that we implement, like within Bitcoin that facilitates more functionality within Bitcoin Core and Lightning, or just Lightning? Does anybody know that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of just a puzzle piece of Lightning. Like Lightning is a whole bunch of different things, like the multi-sig that people lock their coins in. You have HTLC contracts, which are actually used to route payments around. And then you have the penalty keys. And that is how you stop somebody from ever trying to use an old channel state. If they do, you have the magic key and can just take all of their money. L2 is something we can replace the penalty key part with. And instead of some scheme where you have a magic key to take other people's money, you just have a newer version of the transaction. And if anybody ever tries to use an old one, you can just use the new one to hitch on to the end of the old one and spend that the correct way it was supposed to be spent. So instead of like penalizing and taking everybody's money, you just replace the dishonest transaction with the honest one. And a real nice side benefit of that is it makes it infinitely easier to do like off-chain systems that have more than two people involved, because you no longer have to go through the complex logic of if there's 10 people and somebody submits an old like channel state, it's not like two people. You can't just go, oh, well, he's cheating the one other guy, so let the other guy take all of the money. Like, who gets to take how much? Like, what is the difference between everybody's balance in that old channel state versus the honest balance of the current one? And trying to figure that all out with a penalty system is a fucking nightmare. And with something like L2, where you can just replace the dishonest transaction with an honest one, you don't have to even worry about figuring that out.
L2 needs a new champion. CTV's got like 6 people pushing for it now, and APO, or the any prev out.
And with something like L2, where you can just replace the dishonest transaction with an honest one, you don't have to even worry about figuring that
out. L2 needs a new champion. CTV's got like 6 people pushing for it now, and APO, or the any prev out software, no one's really saying let's do that one next anymore. So someone step up to the plate and be like, yeah, I want this one.
Well, the last time I checked on it, like there were still a lot of questions about like mempool pinning attacks and how to solve that. And there's like, I think like 3, maybe 4 different variants of it at this point. It's just way more in flux than all the other things. And also it's really only useful for like a couple of things. Like CTV, Like, there are so many different things you can do with it. It's not just like it's for this one or two things. It's not just like it's for this one or two things.
I suspect that there's a lot of stuff. I think there's more than one or two things that you can do with APO. From the discussions I've had in the circles I hang around with, there's lots of ideas for what you can do with it.
But you can do most of those in a more efficient way with CTV. At least the ones I'm.
Well, I'm a CTV guy too, so we're two CTV fans. We need to find someone who's an APO fan to come up and tell us why we're wrong.
Isn't APO a recursive covenant also, or CTV is non-recursive?
I'm not worried about any like negative side effects from the recursive aspects of APO.
Yeah, but the plebs are.
But that is a talking point.
It's pretty. I mean, the mechanism is very different, but it's pretty much the same thing as CTV. Like, you can't just arbitrarily do recursive anything. Like, you have to know ahead of time what you're recursing through and define that ahead of time.
Yeah, there's just
With
a
APO?
lot of FUD around that.
Yeah, like the generator point trick to do the space chain anchor. Like, you have to define that ahead of time. It's not like it can just recurse anywhere in any direction.
I thought it was super recursing all over the place. Shows how much I know.
Really?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I don't know. I remember a post from Jeremy Rubin where he talked about how to use it for emulating some other type of chain that you don't like. In his, he assumed that there's a lot that recursion is possible with APO.
He actually came, I think, like a year or two later and said that he way overblew like that possibility. Like, it can only really do like the counter function, not like the dynamic aspect for the withdrawals.
Can we talk a little bit about how proposals get activated? I've shared a couple of polls up in the nest that I ran about 18 months ago about CTV. CTV at the time seemed to poll pretty negatively, although even more people said they were undecided about CTV, whether it was good or bad. And then the second poll, I think I modified it. It was about a month later. This was May 2022. And more people seem to like it, but they were saying, why the rush? The options were love it, like it, but why the rush? Hate it, and fuck you, Greg, as per the standard of Bitcoin Twitter polls. Yeah, like it, but why the rush was the lead with 37%. Is there a problem right now in the Bitcoin space about how new proposals are proposed, championed, and then activated? One troubling idea that I heard from one of the Bitcoin core maintainers when I was at TabConf in September was that in order to be now in the Bitcoin space about how new proposals are proposed, championed, and then activated. One troubling idea that I heard from one of the Bitcoin core maintainers when I was at TabConf in September was that in order to be a Bitcoin core dev, you actually have to physically meet one of the maintainers in person. Now, this same maintainer, the next day, he volunteered this information to me, but the next day denied it when I asked him about it on a panel. Is there a problem right now with how new technological improvements are made with Bitcoin, how they're championed, and how they are added, gents? How they're championed, and how they are added, gents.
Yes,
I set a quota for myself that I'll activate 6 softworks in the year 2023, and I procrastinated on this goal, and now I have to do 6 softworks in the next like 5 days or something in order to meet my 9 days. Is that so? Yeah, that's the rush. It's me. I've got to get all this all done, and so get on the stick, everyone. We got to activate CTV so that I can meet the quota.
Yeah, I think there is a huge problem, and that it's a giant fucking shit show. And it's for a million different reasons. Like most of the changes that we've activated historically, like whether you want to acknowledge it or not, were kind of championed and put together by a small group of very competent, very influential developers. And most of them have kind of stepped back a lot from that influential role. Like whether it's just wanting to get on with their personal lives, whether it's getting sick of like the social politics and toxicity and all of that shit. In some cases, from what I understand, it's literally feeling regret and like they fucked up because things that have been added to Bitcoin weren't the perfect optimal thing they could have been. And there's really like that's still just a gaping void in the ecosystem. And I feel like there's a lot of different social dynamics like going on in that, like just hesitance and caution, not wanting to be the one to try to step in and fill that void. I feel like there's a lot of people who were kind of around that group of people and involved in participating with them who want other people to step in and fill that void. And it's just a really weird clusterfuck of a social dynamic right now. And I can't say how things need to change, but something needs to want other people to step in and fill that void. And it's just a really weird clusterfuck of a social dynamic right now. And I can't say how things need to change, but something needs to change. Or things are just going to keep going nowhere, and all of the development effort is going to focus on non-consensus things.
Yeah, it's funny. When you first come into the Bitcoin space, I think it's easy to think that, oh, this is an industry unlike any other where people are willing to speak their minds and call out people for any sort of bullshit. But the longer you spend in this space, you realize there are the same cliques that people just want to, propose things that their friends, or I'm not saying that right. People want to support things because their friends have made it or something like this, and it is all very political. And it's the truth that so many people seem to be, adamant about isn't necessarily what comes out because there is all of this sort of political behavior. Like, is this the biggest? Is this an attack on Bitcoin? Even if
No,
it's not,
dude,
coordinated one.
No, dude, it's the fact that human beings are human beings. And no matter how much any person or group of people want to strive to be the perfect person, like we're all still just people. And like that's just the reality of it. Like there's nothing consciously nefarious, in my opinion. It's not like there's some shadowy cabal that's like, ha ha ha, we're gonna hold this back or stop this from happening. It's just the natural dynamics of people being people and a group of people getting larger and the stakes of what they're doing getting higher.
Yeah, it's not the US dollar, an evil cabal of psychopathic freaks.
Exactly, Dad.
I think I vote for Huddle to Angela. He can fill the gap. Huddle, you're in charge of activating the next software. All right, pick one and let's do it.
Can I just quote Shinobi from a couple of weeks ago? Shinobi said, "Isn't it kind of weird how right when we're starting to build consensus on CTV or another simple covenant, the never-ending series of news things to get pissed off and spurge about on Twitter started coming one after another." So it seems that you are in.
Yeah, dude, but that's not developers. That's not like core developers starting that shit. That's external things.
Luke's a core developer, isn't he?
Dude, Luke is not coming out of nowhere.
One after another. So it seems that you are in.
Yeah, dude, but that's not developers. That's not like core developers starting that shit. That's external things.
Luke's a core developer, isn't he?
Dude, Luke is not coming out of nowhere starting any drama at all. Luke is being Luke, and Luke has been Luke since he was born. And he's
not doing it. He's not doing anything different. That's true.
Yeah, it's definitely par for the course.
So it's all about op cat and eating cats, is what you're saying.
Hey, can I get some?
Bruh, the meat is so tender.
Did we just bring up cat? Are we on to op cat now?
No. The cat is too powerful.
Let me ask you a couple questions, man. I need some of your guys' expert opinions, guys. So
Go for it. What's your question?
all right. So number one, ordinals. I'm understanding what's kind of going on with them vaguely. My question is, I'm trying to send a buddy less than $400 BTC the other day, and it was a $38 fee. Tell me, is this part of the ordinals, fucking assholes, or where am I paying $38 fees and I was paying $3 fees a month
Why
ago?
didn't you use Lightning? Why didn't you?
Tell me, is this part of the ordinals, fucking assholes, or where am I paying $38 fees and I was paying $3 fees a month
Why
ago?
didn't you use Lightning? Why didn't you use Lightning? Out of interest.
Well, honestly, Walton, this is very simple. I keep about $4 to $5 grand on Coinbase and another just like a simple, stupid exchange for two reasons. One, I love stealing their money and putting it in my cold wallet. It's so much fun buying from them and then just taking it from them to make them produce the coins. Like, I want to see them. I want them to. It's worth $2.99 to buy them from them. But I'm just like thinking, okay, casually, it's for a fantasy football league. Nothing obviously nefarious, as we all know. That's what we do with our Bitcoin, right? We're all nefarious fucking shadowy hackers. But I'm like trying to send somebody some money for some fucking fantasy football. It's a almost a $38 fee. And I literally messaged him back and I said, bro, can I just Venmo you? He's like, that dude, I want Bitcoin. And I'm like, yeah, well, fuck you, because I'm gonna I'd rather just send you Venmo and just buy my own Bitcoin for $38. Like, kind of fill me in here where I'm missing something, because I know you guys know.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's ordinals because Bitcoin is designed to have high fees. So
but
it's inevitable.
But aren't the ordinals
But
taking
it is
so much
ordinals.
block space and trouble though that's causing up these higher fees? Aren't that
Well,
kind
Yeah,
of a little bit about it?
Inscription
like
technically.
Toby
You
was
can do
saying,
this. Look, you can
not-
you can send him the transaction to a wallet that you can use replace by fee. Put your low sats per fee byte in there, and then send him the UTXO ID and tell him to pick up his own Slack if he wants it right away. Transaction to a wallet that you can use replace by fee. Put your low sats per fee byte in there, and then send him the UTXO ID and tell him to pick up his own Slack if he wants it right away. Otherwise, he can wait on the mempool.
All right, guys, let's just put this out here bluntly. Like, if it was an entire European nation state onboarding everybody to Lightning so that their entire economy could run on Bitcoin instead of ordinals that was causing these fees, would you be just as pissed? If it was an on-chain DLC marketplace where whole blocks of nations were trading oil contracts denominated in Bitcoin that were driving fees up this high, would you be just as pissed and self-righteous and saying we have to stop this? If it's not one thing, it's inevitably going to be something else. Like,
It
this
doesn't
is
matter
an
what it is.
inescapable dynamic.
That's exactly right.
It doesn't matter
agree
what
with
it
that.
is. If you can cry about it, or you can try and build around, like, it's like something I've been working on as a personal thing. It's like not getting as pissed off with you can try and build around it, right? Like, it's like something I've been working on as a personal thing. It's like not getting as pissed off with retards in traffic, right? There's retards on the road like fucking everywhere, right? Like, what do you do about them? Well, you can get mad,
Make fun of them.
or you can be intelligent and you can move around them, right? And I think this applies to making Bitcoin transactions too. Like, you can get mad or you can try and find better solutions. And if one doesn't exist, then maybe you need to build one, right?
the point is,
I like
Bitcoin has to scale regardless. If it's a nation, if it's some fucking degens who are pumping, the latest fucking ordinals NFT scam, which is going to pass. People think it's going to last forever. It's just another hype cycle. And people, want to go back and heavily alter the dynamics of, how Bitcoin works. If you want to fix it, get rid of SegWit. Go back, take away SegWit, and then, crush every other scripting ability you have in Bitcoin, and just it ruins it. Playing whack-a-mole is like it's a fool's errand.
Let me ask you one last question, then, guys. I want to know your opinion on this one, okay? Because we kind of all have a consensus here. So, is this trying to squeeze out people that are quote unquote? Because I mean, most people that are in the Coinbase or the those kind of places that send BTC via that way, or even buy it through there. I think they're trying to squeeze them out. I mean, to me, this is what I was told when I had to send $350. I mean, right at $350 at $38 for a fee. The first thing I thought was, Josh, cash out your $1,500, man, and just move it somewhere else, or just send it straight to your wallet. Either way, I'm getting. Is that what do you guys feel like in a kind of maybe conspiratorial way?
I
They're
do.
trying to
I do
squeeze
not.
our Bitcoin away.
I do not think that it is a coordinated effort to squeeze you out of block space. I think it is a result of the market dynamics of limited supply of block space and it being something that people want.
Right, Bitcoin, if it didn't have a limited block market, like it wouldn't be a good thing, right? You want it to be limited. Some people argue that the blocks are too big.
I'll make that argument. Blocks are too big.
Bitcoin is working as designed. Deal with it. The only option is to optimize scaling. There is no scaling solution. CTV is the best.
I'll make that argument. Blocks are too big.
Bitcoin is working as designed. Deal with it. The only option is to optimize scaling. There is no scaling solution. CTV is the best option we have right now.
Eon, can you share your opinion on why CTV is the best scaling solution?
Because it's the simplest, it's written, it's coded out. Jeremy's made tons of demos and, of what it could do, what can it accomplish. I think he made a signet, for people to test it on. That's unfortunately not around anymore, but when he was really pushing it a few years ago, he had made a signet with CTV on it. Yeah.
So what's holding it back? Like, my understanding is
people that
Jeremy
don't
kind of doesn't
understand
want to
what the fuck
champion
we're
it
talking
anymore.
about.
But I haven't really heard anyone speak negatively about CTV for quite a long time. So why don't we have CTV right now?
Because good is not enough. It must be perfect. Because
or
at some
there's
point,
something that could be done better. Like, oh, you get TX hash. Oh, well, this other thing. It's just, it's constantly, but.
Can someone make a website, ctvdemos.org or similar, where you collect the things that you can do with CTV, like not just
Jeremy
descriptions?
Rubin's blog.
Well, but he has descriptions of them. I don't think he has the code that actually, like, you can run this program, the things that you can do with CTV, like not just
Jeremy
descriptions.
Rubin's blog.
Well, but he has descriptions of them. I don't think he has the code that actually, like, you can run this program and see what it does.
Well, Super, here's my problem with that bar. It has literally never in the entire history of Bitcoin development been the bar. Like, even Taproot did not have, they didn't even have a specification finalized.
Didn't Jeremy make Sapio? You can run that.
Hold on, man. But like they didn't even have a specification finalized for the multi-sig schemes using Schnorr signatures, let alone a comp demo. And so I find it very weird. I find it very based in social political dynamics and not technical dynamics to all of a sudden just after Taproot have that attitude or that bar just completely shift around and go, give me a working piece of code right now before I'll even look at this or consider this. That is never around. And go, give me a working piece of code right now before I'll even look at this or consider this. That is never the bar, even for the most recent change we just made.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm already a fan of CTV. I want CTV. One of the reasons I want it is because I think you can do a lot with it, and I don't see very many people making those cool things. I would like to see them. It's not. I'm not sitting at a bar and saying I won't activate CTV until this thing is done. I just want to see these cool things.
Okay, cool. Well, sorry, but like a lot of people are setting that bar, and like the reason I find that so ridiculous is like part of the unspoken squabble or like social shit fit that happens in the developer community from my perspective as an outsider is people constantly going, well, I only have so much time. How I choose to use it is up to me. But like lately, there has been this really growing attitude where you spend your time like in this exact way and put in all this massive effort and time to build something that could be a total waste of time before I'll even consider seriously looking at the thing that would make it not a waste of time. And I just find that as insulting as people yelling at developers from the outside, like do this, do that with your time. Like it's the same thing, except it's internal to the developer community. And I find it very frustrating. I know a lot of developers who find it very frustrating. And I also think it's just very hypocritical.
I mean, the narrative around the CTV and governance was like, oh, it's going to bring Ethereum complexity into Bitcoin. I mean, that was like the main point. Everyone was talking about it, but I heard you one time say, Shinobi, that you can actually limit how much complexity you can implement like CTV with. For example, you can redirect like outputs only one time or something, like you cannot do multiple steps. So there's that kind of constraints on how you can apply it, I guess, without increasing the complexity of Bitcoin. Like it will retain actually the simplicity, but you can do it in a clever way where you have like you impose some constraints on it. I would like how you can apply it, I guess, without increasing the complexity of Bitcoin. Like it will retain actually the simplicity, but you can do it in a clever way where you have like you impose some constraints on it. I would like you to expand on that.
Well, like, I mean, here, like, the simplest possible way that you can conceptualize CTV and what it's capable of is it's literally just pre-signed transactions. Like, CTV cannot do anything that you cannot already do with pre-signed transactions. The big difference, though, is with a pre-signed transaction, the key that signed those transactions can always just sign other stuff. Like it's not possible to definitively know that that key was deleted, that it doesn't exist anymore, that it can't just pop out of nowhere and sign conflicting transactions and undo everything that the original transaction set committed to. CTV, that is not possible. It is literally enforced by consensus rules that that's not possible. Once you commit to it, you cannot back out of it. And that is stupidly simple, but stupidly powerful, in my opinion, as just a basic primitive in Bitcoin script.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can make like these improvements that will not increase the complexity so much. It's just like trivial. It's not even going to increase anything, but it will scale like the other layers. And I find it like really weird that we haven't like implemented this already.
I mean, I do too. That's why I've been getting kind of feisty lately.
I wonder how close we can get to CTV without a soft fork. Like you mentioned that the only difference between CTV and signed transactions is that there's one key, or it's effectively as if there's one key that can't sign anything else. I wonder if we could get really close to that using Musig. Like, what if all these people who are running Raspberry Pi, the only difference between CTV and signed transactions is that there's one key, or it's effectively as if there's one key that can't sign anything else. I wonder if we could get really close to that using Musig. Like, what if all these people who are running Raspberry Pi nodes, were running some software that could take a transaction template as input and sign it, and aggregate all of their signatures into one, and then have the software just all deletes their keys. And as long as one person, instead of all the people who are running Raspberry Pi nodes, was honest and actually running the software correctly and deleted their key, that can't change. The key can't sign anything else because it's gone now. Like I wonder if you could get pretty close to CTV with that. Moonsettler's saying no. Moonsettler, do you want to come up and tell us why that's such a bad idea?
Well, the interactivity. I mean, like when we were talking earlier about like what scaling is, it's sharing a UTXO with minimal interactivity and maximum security. And trying to emulate CTV with pre-signed transactions, you just inherently hit a scaling ceiling because of that interactivity requirement. And it's still kind of trusted. I mean, it's like the same thing of Clark, or like trying to do ARC without covenants. Like, yeah, you can do it, but you hit that scaling ceiling at like a fucking logarithmic value of what it could possibly be with CTV.
But I don't think 100. I mean, I haven't built Clark yet, but I think I could build Clark with 100 people. And I think I could build that too, like a CTV emulator with just 100 people in it. And that might be good enough. Like you could probably build all the cool things you can do with CTV without waiting for CTV, just by having this signed transaction key deleter thingy. I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be awesome.
I mean, it'd be cool, but it doesn't give us the scaling wins that CTV does. It doesn't give the ability for 1 million people to know that when a single output is confirmed on chain, their money is safe. It's theirs. It's locked into whatever smart contract they locked it into. Like, it's not capable of that happening without those people ever having control of that money themselves in the first place. Like, everybody could just withdraw from an exchange into one output, and you have a 10,000 person channel factory or other pool construct. But with a pre-signed transaction emulated version of that, like, that just starts getting really screwy with trust assumptions, the on-chain footprint of everybody having to have their coins before they put it that. It's just nowhere near the utility or scalability that CTV is.
It kind of sounds like one of those solutions that's like the minimum viable product. And the problem with doing stuff like that is that once it's out in the wild, people
to have their coins before they put it that. It's just nowhere near the utility or scalability that CTV is.
It kind of sounds like one of those solutions that's like the minimum viable product. And the problem with doing stuff like that is that once it's out in the wild, people just start to build on it like that's the solution, right? And it's like, no, that's, like, this wasn't it. It was supposed to just be this step, but people take it like the whole freaking platform. So yeah, it's definitely a double-edged sword.
I want to hear what Moonsettler has to say. I've never seen him this animated. Moonsettler, what's going on?
Hello guys. So no, you can't really emulate CTV with pre-signed transactions. You can, in a very limited sense, do something similar, but as Shinobi said, it's pretty crap. But you can do a lot of things with CTV, where you basically just commit to a flow of log scripts, but not a flow of transaction IDs. And you can't do that with pre-signed transactions because malleability just kills that scheme like pretty fucking fast. You actually need covenants for that. So it's not true that you can do everything with pre-signed transactions. You can do similar things, and it sucks ass, and the backup schemes are horrible, absolutely horrible. And so governance really just make it less interactive, more easily provable to someone else beyond any reasonable doubt. You can just automate it, and you don't need any social guarantees or supervision or anything. You look at the script, and your software can tell you that, yeah, there is no other way to spend these coins than to your key, and that's it. And the backup schemes can be like a billion times better for this. And for example, with Darkpool, you can have like a normal seed backup you would have anyhow if you hold Bitcoin, and the static template descriptor basically, and a pool template descriptor, and that is not key material. You can store it as redundantly as you want. It can be public really. You can ask it anyone to give it to you, any other member of the pool. You can back it up to 1,000 places. It doesn't matter. It's not key material. You basically, you want, it can be public really. You can ask it anyone to give it to you, any other member of the pool. You can back it up to 1,000 places. It doesn't matter. It's not key material. You basically have the same static backup as you would have with static backup as you would have with on-chain Bitcoin, and you have a covenant pool. Hopefully with checksig from Stack, you have a covenant pool that is an on-demand channel factory. Non-interactive channels can be made from it, and you basically can use Lightning without making those Lightning channels appear on chain ever. Optimistically, again, you can later just cut through them and not even create them. Settle with the pool operator. So yeah, a lot of things you can do with covenants that you can't actually do in any comparable way with fucking pre-signed transactions. And did I fucking pre-signed transactions? And did I mention like the whole shit show with the fees? Like how much pre-signed transactions suck when you have like an unpredictable fee market and long-lived contracts? Like that's a complete fucking shit show.
Does CT fix that?
What do you mean fix that?
If you do it with CTV instead, do you get rid of the problem where an unpredictable fee market ruins the covenant?
I mean, you can, if you check out Darkpool, you can actually use CTV in a way where you don't mind malleability, you don't care about it because you still load the coins into a script flow, but not a transaction ID flow, and it still works.
Yeah, like super. You can always commit to a second like inputs in the index without specifying the input. So you can construct CTV trees where any arbitrary input can come in as a second input and pay the fees, and it doesn't break any of the commitments going forward with the tree.
That sounds a whole lot like any prev out. Is that what that is?
I mean, yeah,
No,
similar,
it's
similar, but
more
no.
like anybody can pay, except you're not able to add another output. So you can just add like a fee payment.
Any prev out, any script. If
to add another output. So you can just add like a fee payment.
Any prev out, any script. If APOS, if you want to say, very similar to CTV. The difference is that CTV can do what APOS does, sort of, in a limited way, and APOS can do in a very limited way, do half of what CTV can do, but it does not actually give you the ability to use it in a way where you can actually predict the transaction IDs. So that doesn't exist with APO, as far as I know. But with CTV you can kind of do both. The difference is with APOAS, you don't have to specify how many inputs you want to actually spend. With CTV, you always specify how many inputs the contract can have. But I don't think this has like a huge practical impact on the contract design, because you don't actually need to like allow for any number of inputs. You're usually just going to allow for 1 or 2 inputs. That's the most likely. But since you can just create alternative script possibilities with TapScript must, right? You can actually have like 10, 15 different number of inputs if you really want to, and then only use the one that is most likely is going to be used. But you don't really limit yourself in a sense that would be tragic. So I would say CTV is, in this sense, is again better than APOS, because it gives you more options to what you want to do, and kind of can do the same thing if you want.
Now we've got 3 CTV champions on stage and still no APO champions. This is getting more and more lopsided.
We need to get Giacomo
Well,
up
hey,
here, because I saw the tweet where he was
does
saying
all
that
the shit.
CTV people are either scammers or morons.
But
And
let's not invite.
Well, we're
drama
actually going to have
on
Giacomo
Yeah,
on
guys-
next week's episode.
Guys,
Next week,
do you know what
episode
happened?
69 is going to be Giacomo, so we'll hear from him then.
Do you go?
Yeah,
scammers or morons.
but
And
let's not invite.
Well, we're
drama
actually going to have
on
Giacomo
Yeah,
on
guys-
next week's episode.
Guys,
Next week,
do you know what
episode
happened?
69 is going to be Giacomo, so we'll hear from him then.
Do you go?
Yeah,
guys
but
know what
like
happened?
seriously though, guys, let's not like devolve this into drama. If you really want to look at the drama, you can go look at my page on Twitter and see the drama. This is a very productive conversation. I think we should keep it that way.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that what really actually happened, and why MVK and Giacomo and a few other people are upset, is because Set for Privacy actually likes CTV, and he seems to be putting himself to trying to move this forward, and a lot of people actually keep him counted as a scammer or something like
I mean,
that.
Seth for Privacy is some shitcoiner that blocked me a long time ago, right?
Okay,
he's
so
some
this
Ethereum
is-
guy,
Guys,
right?
drama
that's it.
done.
Yeah.
Conversation continue.
Why
It's
do
retarded.
Monero guys
It's
always end
retarded
up working
to
for
judge
Foundation
an
devices,
entire
eh?
group. It's retarded to judge an entire group of people because there is one person that you don't like in support and not even in the group. It's fucking retarded, and those people should be ashamed of themselves.
yeah, see, and this is exactly the type of stuff that causes the de-evolution, right? And then we don't end up having, the right types of conversations that should be happening, where we're talking about the trade-offs and and like what's good and what's bad. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, absolutely.
But it is,
like
but it is a
shouldn't-
Twitter space, so there's that.
It is, but still, even if you don't, where we're talking about the trade-offs and and like what's good and what's bad. So
Yeah.
like, yeah.
This episode of Pleb Underground is brought to you by Represent. Check them out at representltd.com. Use the code Pleb Underground for 10% off awesome threads. They are our clothing sponsor. They made these awesome shirts for our meetup in Miami. Unfortunately, it's not available, but amazing threads just like this are at representltd.com.
Absolutely.
But it is, but it is a
shouldn't-
Twitter space, so there's that.
It is, but still, even if you don't like somebody, I've listened to plenty of people that I don't like and that don't like me, but if they make a valid argument, like it's a valid argument, like it shouldn't make a difference that, so what? So you don't like the person, who cares? the person. Who cares? You know?
I mean, Bitcoin doesn't care the human condition, so it should be no surprise.
Exactly. CTV
Yeah, but its
doesn't give
users
a
do.
fuck.
But anyway, super. I mean, I think it should be a little bit social signal to wait that you can find so many people willing to jump on a stage like this and talk about CTV and why we find this so valuable and why we want it. And it's so hard to find somebody to do the same thing with APO. And I say that as like, I would like APO. I actually have a couple pet ideas of mine, like, you know, one of them that you also completely independently arrived at yourself that could really use APO.
When white paper, dude.
Completely independently arrived at yourself that could
Yeah,
really use APO.
When white paper, dude.
The spookiness of APO, Shinobi. What about the spookiness of APO? You came to terms with that it can do drive chain like constructs and stuff like that.
It can do half of drive chains. It can't do the whole thing, and you still need an actual pegging mechanism. But it's the, you know, my point is, like, just because I want CTV and I rate CTV as more generally useful as a higher priority, it doesn't mean I don't also want APO. I just think if we're going to prioritize things, I think CTV is much more useful and much more important to get in first.
Especially if you combine with checkstic from stack and internal key, because then you can do LN symmetry. And CTV is still like a hell of a lot easier to reason about. If you want to reason about unintended consequences and unknown unknowns, CTV is just like 100 times cleaner than APO.
There's too much of the CTV plus stuff. Everyone's saying we're going to give CTV plus checkstic from stack or CTV plus vault or CTV plus whatever. Too much of that. Let's just do. We at least all agree on CTV. Let's get that.
Yep.
Then we can upgrade later to something extra.
Yeah, but really, so if you want to like really scale Lightning Network to billions of people and them to have like a decent engineering solution with a good user experience and good freedoms and stuff, you're probably going to need CTV plus checkstic from stack. Like,
it's fine, but I think it's about polling. It's like if you create a poll where it's you can have A plus B or neither, then the people that just want one of them don't get to vote for who just want one, and so then you don't get the polling.
You actually can activate like different proposals in parallel, and they are useful without each other. They are just like 100 times more useful together.
I'm just saying, if the vote is to do both at the same time or no, then you get people saying neither who want only one of them.
Yeah, it's weird. I really hope people can grow a brain, but yeah.
People can't.
I refuse. I will never do that.
Then you get people saying neither who want only one of them.
Yeah, it's weird. I really hope people can grow a brain, but yeah.
People can't.
I refuse. I will never do that.
I already have one.
People follow narratives. People follow narratives and follow influencers, and unfortunately, Bitcoin does not establish consensus. Bitcoin preserves consensus, but anytime we want to establish a new consensus, we're left to the old human fucking club.
I probably going to do like an entire space on how different it would be from like an engineering point of view if you only have CTV and you try to do covenant pools that are connected to the Lightning Network and can interact with it. And if you have checkstic from stack, so that people can feel the enormous difference and how little change checkstic from stack is, because it's literally just a checkstic operation where the message is not a transaction SIG hash, it's just a message that you put on the stack. So it really does not add anything very new to Bitcoin in crypto that you put on the stack. So it really does not add anything very new to Bitcoin in cryptography or behavior. It's just a very slightly modified checkstic operation. And it has been active on many chains for a very long time, and they did not really have any problems with it. So yeah, I think people would need to listen to the insane difficulty of trying to pre-calculate all possible options and locking them with hash locks and how the script look like instead of the simple contract that is just much more flexible and actually extensible with checkstic from stack. It's crazy. It's literally insanity to force developers to try to deal with that instead of activating bot. But that's just my opinion, you know.
Well, this has been a great conversation, but I want to get going. So thank you all for this. Have a great Merry Christmas.
Hey, thank you very much for joining us, Super
Merry
Testnet.
Christmas, Super.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
You're all welcome. Yep.
All right, now that the adult is gone, now you guys want to talk shit, get into drama.
Yeah, now it's time to argue about the bullshit.
So are we blaming Jeremy Rubin that CTV is not activated then?
Yeah,
Is that where
it's
we're
totally
going?
his fault. He just didn't push hard enough, you know, like everybody gave him shit and he just took it. And it's his fault.
People are
No.
people.
We just need higher fees. That's the only solution. And then people will finally feel the pain.
More pain, yeah.
Dude, I'm still waiting on a transaction to confirm I submitted that the.
Just need higher fees. That's the only solution. And then people will finally feel the pain.
More pain, yeah.
Dude, I'm still waiting on a transaction to confirm I submitted that the 15th. It's been a week now. So that's a V-Byte. Fuck it. Let's see what happens, motherfuckers.
Yeah, I had a friend that submitted one like 2 months ago, and it's still there.
I don't care. I'll wait.
I mean, it's either that path of confidence and optimizing, or it's custodial Bitcoin for the poor and then on-chain for the rich. That's it. And you want people wonder why Wallet of Satoshi got so expensive, or and you want people wonder why Wallet of Satoshi got so expensive, or so popular. This is why. Lightning, one, is not user friendly, and two, in a high fee environment, it breaks down.
Yep. I mean, dude, and like I have been saying this for years. If we do not radically re-engineer Lightning, and a lot of that involves adding new features to the base layer, it's just going to be an extension of the blockchain as a settlement mechanism. It's not going to be a consumer payment network. It's not going to be a micro payment network. It's just going to be the way that people take what they would have just settled on chain and make it a little more bearable settling it on they would have just settled on chain and make it a little more bearable settling it on Lightning instead. Like it's still as it is right now. It's just another settlement layer. And like I've been fucking screaming this for years. And everybody, oh, Shinobi, stop fighting, stop spreading bullshit. Why are you such a hater? And here we are now.
I mean, it's the problem with people just following narratives. They were sold that Lightning is this panacea, and it's solving, scaling is solved. We have Lightning, and reality doesn't work like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I just don't know how to deal with this thing because everyone is going to recommend custodial solutions to the people that cry about high fees because it economically makes sense, but that should just not be acceptable. It should not be socially acceptable to capitulate from self-custody so early in this thing that is Bitcoin. This is fucking bullshit, but I don't know how to tell people to like fucking set their stash on fire instead of staying in custody, and it is going to be bad, but yeah, nothing we can do about it this cycle.
To a certain extent, you're looking at well over like how old is the banking system, right? Like you're looking at hundreds of years old of brainwashing and the fact that human beings just trust third parties. So to your point, like it's an uphill battle, and we're probably some of the first generations in a very long time, right, where we're actually rethinking personal responsibility, privacy, like being an individual, stuff like that. So it's, man, all we have is time. Like it is going to take time. It'll probably take it at the very minimum one full generation.
I think you've also got the trade-off though about convenience versus value for money. And people look at custodial services and say,
and all we have is time. Like it is going to take time. It'll probably take it at the very minimum one full generation.
I think you've also got the trade-off though about convenience versus value for money. And people look at custodial services and say, well, they're more convenient and maybe I get to keep more of my money. So they're better value for money. Now, obviously, if you're a real Bitcoiner, you understand the issues of not your keys, not your coins. But I think there's a whole lot of people, in part driven by some quote unquote Bitcoin only exchanges, that now have a whole bunch of UTXOs that are like 100,000 sats, and they're sitting around going, shit, like if I actually want to move my money, I might actually have to take a serious percentage cut on actually how much really is going to be mine. And I think that's a real big problem too, right? Like where's the balance found? I think there more and more people need to learn about controlling their own UTXOs and what that means when you have higher fee environments.
Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe if we had something like I don't know, like a solution where you can have like an emergency block extension that you cannot put like new UTXOs in. You cannot spend new UTXOs in. You can only spend like real old ones that you couldn't consolidate or something like that. But even that sounds like insanely complicated, and it doesn't really improve the overall robustness of Bitcoin, its ability to operate in a hostile regulatory environment and all that shit, or like stay coherent in a partitioned internet condition. You have all these problems. But when fees run real high and people have this problem of not even knowing if they ever going to be able to move a UTXO, because there are no guarantees the fees are coming down. We suspect they will come down at one point. I mean, but when fees run real high and people have this problem of not even knowing if they ever going to be able to move a UTXO, because there are no guarantees the fees are coming down. We suspect they will come down at one point. I mean, next bear market, but you don't really know for sure. And in this situation, like people are going to be really stressed. And I believe a lot of people are going to capitulate from self-custody and from Bitcoin altogether. And literally don't know if at this point we can do anything about it. And that's like real fucking sad.
I don't think I'm going to be such a doomer as Moon Settler, but I do think more and more people need to learn as much as they can about the trade-offs with the different forms of storing your own Bitcoin. We're going to be wrapping up in the not too distant future, but I'm going to invite Cortic up on stage. In the not too distant future, but I'm going to invite Cortic up on stage. Cortic's actually a friend of mine from the Bitcoin Clubhouse days, and I want to hear some of his thoughts before we wrap things up. Cortic, welcome.
Hey, Walton. So what's the Moon Settler as a developer? What is why do you want CTV activated? Is there specific, what does it solve?
So CTV can make a lot of things better. It's like a tool. It's like a hammer. You can build a ship with it. You can build all sort of stuff with it. It's a primitive, very simple, easy to reason about. My hope is that we can create covenant pools that allow people to share UTXOs without being subject to the whims of others. Like if you are in custody, the biggest problem with custody and the legal system and why others, like if you are in custody, the biggest problem with custody and the legal system and why Satoshi tried to create a very different system than those that came before is that those people that you trust can always change the rules unilaterally. They just do. That's what politicians do. That's what bankers do. One day you can spend your coin, your money somewhere. The other day they will close your account for it, or not even give you your money, but say you are under investigation and you just don't have access to your money. Or what happened to the Canadian trackers, right? They change the rules on you, and that's like the thing we want to avoid with Bitcoin. It's not just that they can rug you. Maybe they will never rug you. Maybe you are lucky. But they can change the rules and they can tell you what to do and what not to do, and you do not have privacy and all these problems. So we are trying to find the better trade-offs. We are trying to figure out how to do covenant pools where people can pool their money. They can do internal coin joins, mixing that give them privacy and the ability to interact with the Lightning Network, with these non-interactive channels that don't even have to make it on chain. Optimistically, they don't make it on chain. So we interact with the Lightning Network, with these non-interactive channels that don't even have to make it on chain. Optimistically, they don't make it on chain. So imagine Lightning channels that you can make to an LSP, and they don't actually have to appear on chain. They can, if there is a dispute, pushed on chain, but optimistically, they never go on chain. And that is like huge scaling factor for the Lightning Network, for people to actually, own Lightning channels. It is completely different than what currently is going on. So that's my hope. And again, whole lot of things, like it would be tiresome to even list them that can use CTV to do. Not sure if you guys saw the meme where I have some cool new thing and the I can't say it. It's
But is
better
there
with
like
Wait,
comments.
did somebody make an I made that meme about like transaction hash and all the other shit that are literally just different versions of CTV?
Yeah.
And all the other shit that are literally just different versions of CTV.
Yeah.
Because if not, I need to make that meme right now.
But
yeah, I mean, it's funny.
Is there a golden key?
What do you mean?
Is there like in Pinocchio? Is there covenants? You're saying, but is there like the key to that covenant that controls all of it by someone?
Yeah, you mean like the One Ring or something?
Yeah, like labeled sets versus unlabeled, or controlled by some entity.
I don't know what the fuck you are talking about. Sorry.
No, there's no central control to covenants.
Yeah, no.
It's an instruction set in the UTXO.
I mean, if you used an oracle, a signing oracle that enforces the covenant rules instead of a real covenant, then you have like a centaur that can rag you or just withhold the signature and fuck you that way. But if you do covenants proper, then no, you are in full control. Because like I said in the other space, people need to get this bullshit about how someone can encumber your coins. Like, then no, you are in full control. Because like I said in the other space, people need to get this bullshit about how someone can encumber your coins. Like, if you have a wallet that is an unclogged wallet and you actually trust it, it will generate scripts and addresses for you. And when you give that address to someone and he pays to that address commits to the script, which means it contains all your unlocking conditions that you want. So your wallet specifies the conditions how the coins can be spent. If someone else sends coins to another address that you requested, then you say, I did not get paid, go fuck yourself. That's the defense that you have against all this. Imagine if you gave someone a Bitcoin address and he sends the Bitcoins to an entirely different address and tells you that you got paid. You would fucking laugh in his face or tell him to go fuck himself. That's what would happen. And basically that is why this concern is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, the template exists on the receiver side. It's not like the person sending you the
whole concern is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, the template exists on the receiver side. It's not like the person sending you the coins can send it to you with this nefarious template on it and you're going to be subject to it. It's not how it works at all. It's based on the receiver and they set the conditions.
Yeah, I mean, in legacy Bitcoin script, when Satoshi released Bitcoin, it was a bit weird because in legacy script, you can actually specify the lock conditions in the output part of the transaction, right? This was before, the pay to script hash type addresses, way before. People were actually trying to send Bitcoin to IP addresses and all that nonsense that we now just look at with horror. Like, how could anyone just come up? We now just look at with horror. Like, how could anyone just come up with that? So in legacy script, you can technically set the conditions when you log the coins into a new UTXO. but the receiver can still say that this is not what I wanted. I don't accept this as a payment. Please kindly go fuck yourself. So even then, even with legacy script, but with the pay to script hash type modern ways where the log script is not actually the concern of the sender, that it is the concern of the wallet that you use as receiver, and you are specifying the script and you are just giving him a hash that we call an address, because that's what address is generally. Well, in Taproot, it's a pub key that is tweaked, but let's not get too much bogged down in technical details. The point is you are giving him an address, and that address is committing to all the spending conditions that you wanted, and there is just no way to send bitcoins to that address in a way that you did not agree to or did not request or did not specify.
Interesting. So I know what's the plan to activate that if the BIP9 nobody likes?
Yeah, there is a strong resistance to BIP9. I wouldn't say nobody likes, because all the actual fucking developers that know what they are talking about, the core developers, they actually seem to like BIP9. And a whole lot of people hate BIP9, and they tend to be less knowledgeable about how Bitcoin works and all that stuff, with a few notable exceptions like Luke Jr., who I don't think I would ever dare claim he doesn't know what he's talking about, because he really knows Bitcoin inside out. So there are a few people like that, but most of the times you are going to hear clueless people having a very strong opinion about activation methods, and they don't actually know what they are talking about, but they have very strong opinions, and I will respect that. And last time we tried the speedy trial, and I think now we will try BIP8 with LOT equals true, because that seems to be what most people are comfortable with for whatever reason. It does not really make sense on a technical level, but like I said, this is more like a philosophical kind of thing that seems to be the more acceptable way of activating proposals. Yeah. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
We're still here.
I'm gonna invite Mars up for maybe the very last question of the space, because we've been going for just over 2 hours now. Mars, are you there?
Cheers.
The last question for the remaining speakers, Mars, it's all yours.
Oh, there was a question.
No, I'm asking you if you've got a question. So,
how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for asking. And you?
Cheers. Me too. I just got home from the mall. Just drifted in.
Oh, dude, the mall, that's brutal.
I've not even yet done any Christmas shopping. I've left you. So,
how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for asking. And you?
Cheers. Me too. I just got home from the mall. Just drifted in.
Oh, dude, the mall, that's brutal.
I've not even yet done any Christmas shopping. I've left mine till tomorrow. So wish me luck.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah.
you're in for a real treat.
Well, in my family we do Secret Santa, so rather than like buying one small gift for everyone and everyone ending up with a bunch of shit you don't really want, you just have a large budget for one person and then everyone gets something decent. It kind of works. But
So everybody just gets a candle?
No.
Candle or a mug?
I kind of like candles.
Oh, my mic's off.
Candle.
Oh, my mic's off. Sorry, boys. So what's this? What's going on here?
Okay,
We're
so
talking about CTV then.
Yes.
All right, I think we're going to wrap it there, guys. It's been a great talk about scaling Bitcoin. I will do another one of these spaces with Phil again very soon. This has been lots of fun. Please check out Pleb Underground. We're on YouTube. We're on a bunch of audio only platforms as well: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Fountain, Breeze. And if you go to fuckshitcoins.com, please like and subscribe. And we will see you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, guys.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. And fuck shitcoins.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. And fuck shitcoins.
More toxic than the most toxic.